We are back, and we just finished watching 2016's Moonlight. It's rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes. This is from writer-director Barry Jenkins from a novel by Tarell Alvin McCraney. Caught this on Tubi, but it's also to buy rent on Prime Video. This is the story of a young man told in 3 parts. First part is labeled Little, the second one is labeled Chiron, and the third one is Black. It is the same young man, and according to IMDb, a young African-American man grapples with his identity and sexuality while experiencing the everyday struggles of childhood, adolescence, and burgeoning adulthood. I think that's a pretty good summation of the film. This is a film that won Best Film that year. I think it also got the screenplay and supporting actor to Mahershala Ali, who played Juan. I'm going to go around the table and get impressions. I'm going to start with you. What did you think of the film?
I thought it was good.
And any other thoughts?
No.
What are you, the kids?
Yeah. No, I thought it was good. I think the story was told really well. I think that we got sort of the, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the pivotal moments in his upbringing that made him the man that he eventually becomes. You get to see how that he's kind of like a damaged guy because of the situation that he's growing up in. And you get to see kind of how he's able to find certain moments of peace and happiness in his life, as rare as they are. And it was nice. I didn't really... To me, I mean, some people may think this is an overall sad film, but to me, I didn't feel like that. It kind of, to me, had like a happy ending. So, yeah, it was a nice movie.
It did, but I feel like his early chapters are just mired in sadness. He has a mother who doesn't really pay attention to him. I get the impression that much like our generation, we were a bunch of latchkey kids, he's sort of had to fend for himself for the most part. He probably cooks for himself. He probably cleans his own clothing. He bathes himself. He's still a little kid. And in the first time we see the Naomi Harris character, she is coming, I don't know, she's coming home from work or something. And
she looked like she was a nurse the first time you see her. And then the rest of it, she was completely strung out.
Right. But it still felt like there's a reason why this young man, or this, in the beginning, a young boy, is so withdrawn, right? And he lacks familial love. I think his mother doesn't know how to love him, and I think she has issues with him as well. And they go into that a little bit. You see a little bit of that. It's never fully explored, but do get hints of why she, there's the drug addiction, right? So that's makes her useless as a parent, but she's also, there are moments where she's mean.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, I never felt like Barry Jenkins was judging her. It always felt like he's presenting you the story. There was never any kind of leaning one way or another. It was just, this is the story, right? And sometimes when you see characters like this, it feels like there's an emotional slant. There isn't that here.
It's not like a morality play where she ends up, she's a lesson for him because she ended up dead or something like that. By the end of the film, she has accepted what she was, and she's basically moving on with her life the best way that she can.
Right.
There's no redemption, really. It's not like as though suddenly she's like, and I started a charity that helps drug-addicted moms. No, she's basically just getting by.
Right. I mean,
she has a.
That's part of the story of addiction, right? It's one day at a time.
One day at a time, and so this is like a very realistic look at that. Yeah, there's no real reward there other than the reward of not being on drugs anymore. It's not like as though she has a super close relationship with her son. Right. He visits her every once in a while.
Right. And I get the impression he does that more for his own self-preservation. I don't know about self-preservation.
I think he just does it because it's his mom.
I meant he visits her sporadically for his own.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, he doesn't want to see her too much because, I mean, he's still having nightmares about her.
Right. And
even as an adult.
she may have cleaned up her act, but he's very damaged and traumatized by
those scars.
his time
Those scars are deep.
Right, exactly. I mean, in that final sequence, or the final sequence of their relationship, or the one that we see, she's trying to build this bridge with him, but he's hesitant, right? And in a way resistant because, to your point, he has these scars that run deep. Gee, what did you think of the mother, the character of the mother?
I thought she was sad, I guess.
She is kind of a tragic character. I mean, addiction is one of those things I don't think anybody says, "Oh, I want to be an addict when I grow up." It's just something that sort of happens. So, I mean, there is.
Well, what did you think?
Empathy and compassion in that sense, but at the same time, it's tragic because this child suffered so much.
What did you think of the relationship between the two of them, G? How do you think that affected his growing up?
I mean, it deprived him of a proper maternal figure. I don't know. I didn't think about the mom that much. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. He doesn't have a father that we know of in the story, but Juan comes sort of a father figure to him. What did you think of Juan?
I liked his character.
Yeah.
I liked the scene where he taught him how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have that discussion at the beach. Honestly, that's probably like one of my favorite parts of the film.
What about his sort of other mother, Teresa?
She was nice. I mean, she did better to Chiron than his actual mom.
Right.
I liked her character. I guess I thought more about her than his actual mother. But out of the three of them, I guess Juan was my favorite.
Sure, fair.
To Chiron.
Do you think, I mean, this is purely speculation, right? Because we don't know. But do you think that in the beginning, Juan sees Little running to escape those bullies? Do you think he purposely followed Little to that empty apartment?
Maybe.
What do you think?
He didn't go back there afterwards, so not to the hole or whatever he called it. So I guess he was looking for him.
I think he definitely followed him because why else would he have been there? Those buildings were abandoned. Mm-hmm. They were just crack houses. And even though Juan was a drug dealer, he wasn't the guy that is out on the corner having the relationship with the addicts. He's the sort of the supervisor of other drug dealers. He goes, asks them how it's doing, how business is going, and then at the end of the week they bring him the money. So him actually showing up at that place, and he knew the kid ran in there because he pulled the board off the window. So yeah, he definitely saw what was going on and followed that kid.
He was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and that's what Little needed.
Right.
Chiron needed. In case you're confused, Chiron's nickname at that point in the movie is Little. That's what he needed because little kids need to be taken care of.
Right.
And his mother was not doing that for him. And Juan and Teresa provided that. They gave him
sort of a sense of normalcy.
Sense of normalcy, that sort of familial provision that a child needs. And him especially because he was such an outcast. There's no outward projection of his sexuality at this point.
Right, especially
he's a little kid. So when the little kids are running around and chasing him and calling him names, I guess it's a little strange because I don't know, maybe there were certain things that like stuck out to these other kids that made them think, oh yeah, that's Little. He's gay. He's the little gay boy. But there's nothing in it. There's nothing that you actually see of that other than the fact that he's clearly withdrawn, clearly shy.
You mentioned that Juan is a drug dealer. This would be a person that isn't seen as someone with empathy, compassion, morals, or even a role model. And
he's typically not. Yeah, typically this isn't the guy that you're looking up to,
right?
As like a father figure.
And yet he becomes that to Little, and it seems like all the way up to when he's in high school, and he now is referred to as Chiron. And from just the brief conversation, it seemed like he had passed fairly recently. Like the mother says something like, "Oh, I haven't seen Teresa since the funeral."
Oh, and during his teenage years. Yeah. They don't go into any details about what happens to Juan. They just say that he passed away when probably Chiron is. How old do you think he was when he reached the second chapter? Was he
I want to say like a sophomore or junior in high school. I don't think he was a senior.
So like 16 something?
Possibly 15, 16.
Okay. Which, I mean, clearly is another blow to this kid because
Sure.
The one person who's like his father figure is now
gone.
Once again out of the picture. I mean, he never knew his real dad.
Gee, what did you think of, kind of to your dad's point about when we're in the first chapter of Little Story, how the other boys sort of bullied him and called him names, and yet there didn't seem to be any kind of anything to make it seem like this child. I mean, he was still a child, so none of that really, and yet these kids still bullied him. What did you think of that?
Like, what do you mean?
Just the idea of, I guess, like bullies and being picked on for being different, right? Did you notice anything outwardly like a huge flag about Little?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either. There's that scene where the mother tells Juan something about, what was it again? Like,
you see the way he walks?
Right.
But he didn't walk weird at all.
I didn't think so either.
Do you think that was intentional or just like maybe a shortcoming of the film?
I don't think it was a shortcoming. I think that maybe, I mean, like we discussed a little bit after we watched the film, how, I don't know, I was thinking about, like, G had read like Lord of the Flies, right? And I felt like in that instance, 'cause even in that, like the first dinner conversation, or not the first, but when Little asks Juan, what is a F-word slur? And I think Juan replies and says, it's a word people use against gay people to make them feel bad. Juan kind of taken aback, but to his credit, he's extremely honest with this child in his explanation. And he says something to the effect like, you'll know when you know, and you don't have to know that right now, right? So it was kind of interesting because, again, these are urban streets. They run rough. This is not an easy neighborhood. You can tell that. And so Little's surrounded by aggression, toxic masculinity, all of that stuff. And yet he almost catches a break because here's someone, Juan, sees him, who really sees him and is trying to take him under his wing, trying to be a good role model for him or a good adult in this kid's life that he can count on, because he obviously doesn't have much.
Yeah. I wonder why Juan was like that. I mean, in this
child.
Maybe it is like kind of interesting that he would do that, given, as you were saying, the environment that they're in, where it's just the masculinity is tied up with how tough you are, and even when the conversation he has with Kevin. Yeah, you got to show, you got to. Right? I know you're not soft, but you got to make these people believe you're not soft.
Right.
And then they have their little tussle. Yeah, everything is like really wrapped up into that. And it's sort of it's like interesting in the fact that you have to sort of like open yourself up. Even like Juan wanted to be like clearly wanted to be a father figure to this kid, but you also sort of have to open yourself up. You can't be like this closed off tough guy.
Right.
When somebody's trying to reach out and lend you a hand, and you see that, I guess, that sort of softening in Little when you see them at the beach. Like the as G mentioned it, the scene where they go swimming, it's a lovely scene.
Right.
Yeah, and you see that as the film goes on, you see that he equates the water and the beach with just good, nice things in his life. They are like the moments in his life where I guess you could call them the core memory building moments if we're gonna quote
Inside Out. Let's move on to the second chapter when he becomes Chiron. Again, this child is now getting into young adulthood. He's still being just bullied. That kid, Tarell.
Yeah, that kid was a jerk.
Oh my gosh. Gee, what did you think of the Tarell character?
He got what was coming to him.
Yeah, I don't think any of us felt bad when that sequence unfolds. Why do you think, I'm just going to throw that out. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Why do you think that happens? Why is it that certain kids just mercilessly pick on other children?
Because they can. They think to other people it makes them look tougher.
Yeah, if you want to show how tough you are, you have to demonstrate it to everybody somehow. And the best way to demonstrate that is to pick on somebody who looks weaker than you. And let's be honest, Chiron he was skinny. He was a skinny dude.
Yeah,
so he's a little, yeah.
And
He was shy. He was skinny.
He is the perfect.
He's the perfect target for a bully. It's like, I'm clearly going to demonstrate my dominance.
But it's interesting because he threatens to beat him up, but then doesn't, but then gets Kevin to beat him up.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I wonder if it was because he knew that that Chiron and Kevin were friends.
Maybe, because it would be more devastating.
Yeah,
to Chiron that Kevin was doing this to him.
It's the sort of dickish
and Kevin
move.
keeps telling him, like, stay down, right?
Yeah, it's the kind of dickish thing that a bully would do. It's all right, not only are you getting abused, but I'm also mentally abusing you. And a lot of a bully's repertoire is mental abuse.
Sure.
Generally, that's what builds up to an eventual beating. But most of the time, it's just torment.
Right. So then we see this constant harassment, and finally it blows up. And I think a defining moment was it the principal of the school? She's talking to him, and she's basically telling him he should press charges because this isn't going to stop. And he doesn't want to. But then I think when she says that, it sort of flips a switch in his head. And I think something that Juan had said to him when he was telling him the story about when he was a young boy being wild and stuff, and the older woman said to him that light black boys look blue, and that he looked blue, and that she was going to call him blue. He said, you have to decide who you're going to be. You can't let somebody else do that. So so it felt like at that moment, he had come to this crossroad, and he had to make a decision in that moment. He could either be a sheep, or he could be, I guess, a butcher.
No, he would be a man. The lady in the office said, if you were a man, there would be 4 other guys in here with you, injured. I thought that's what really set him off. Because she calls him boy, and then he says, I ain't no boy,
right.
And then she's like, if you weren't a boy, blah, blah, blah. Right. So the next day he goes into school, and that's what starts it.
Yes, absolutely. So the conversation with the principal, I guess she's the principal, I think is the turning point. But I think it also relates to his previous conversation with Juan when he was young. So in that moment, that next day, after this whole thing happens, he goes to the school and there is a altercation. Is he justified?
Yes.
What do you say?
Yeah. I mean, Tarell, is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid absolutely deserved to get a chair busted over his head. And I think it was a culmination of all of that. I think it was the speech from Juan as a young man, boy. I think it was what the principal said. I also think it was the fact that it was Kevin that was involved and what had happened between him and Kevin just the day before. And especially at that point, because I honestly felt the reason why he went down to that water was he was going to kill himself. And Kevin just happened to be there. And then there's it's kind of like that is a defining moment in his life and a moment of happiness. And then that moment of happiness is taken away from him by that piece of crap Tarell the following day. And then you have what G said, what the principal said. So it's I am at my lowest. I got people telling me that I'm not a man. And I remember what Juan told me. All right, I'm going to define myself here. And he did. And he ends up getting arrested.
But that guy deserved it, Tarell. So
yeah, I was happy that kid did not get up.
There was another scene that I found unsettling. I guess in the morning when he comes home, and I guess Juan's already passed, and the mother's like, oh, I locked myself out, whatever. And she seems normal. But then when she gets inside, there's like this frantic search for money because obviously she needs a fix. And she turns on Chiron, like, just, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's quick and it's brutal. She's almost like this Jekyll and Hyde character. And I guess that's part of the curse of addiction, right? What did you think of that scene?
I think that was pretty much like the death of his relationship with his mom. It was, there's nothing I could do for her. There's nothing I could help her with. She will, like you said, it seemed like everything was normal. And then suddenly she's just like, you better give me that money. Outside, she's like, oh, how's Teresa? And then inside, it's like, I know that bitch gives you money. It really was like a night and day thing. So, I mean, I'm sure even before that, I don't think he had much faith in his mom, but I think that whole sequence was just sort of like, I've got nothing. I have absolutely nothing in my life that's worth living. I think that was the evening that he goes to the beach, right?
Right.
Yeah.
After that, then he goes to the beach and he's Kevin, and he says it makes sense what you said, because he says Chiron tells Kevin like he has all these crazy thoughts.
Yeah.
He doesn't elaborate, and Kevin even says like, "What are you talking about?"
There's
and then he kind of spins it. He's like, "Oh man, you're nosy."
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are said in silence in this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The silence in this movie, the silence of these characters.
Especially it's Chiron because there are many moments in the film, or a couple that I remember, where it's just he's sort of sitting there and you see people talking and there's no dialogue or it's muted, or you just hear sort of like this ambient noise. And sometimes you feel that way when you're like really in your emotions, usually when you're in very negative emotions or you're feeling extremely low, extremely sad. It's almost like you're shell shocked by how depressed you are, and people are talking around you, and it's just, they may as well just be not talking. They don't make any sense, or you don't hear them at all. Yeah, so that was a very interesting way of showing that. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, agreed. I want to move to the final chapter, which is Black. This person is now in adulthood. He's been in the big house. He picked up a trade and is now sort of become...
He's followed in Juan's footsteps.
He's basically followed in Juan's footsteps. Yes.
He even wears like the do-rag on his head. Yeah.
And the crown on the dashboard of the car.
The crown on the dashboard of the car.
Which Juan also had. Gee, what did you think of when we see Black now as an adult in, I guess, Atlanta? I guess being a businessman in the drug trade. I don't know.
He's doing exactly what Juan did. He's not the guy selling it.
Right.
He's the guy that they bring the money to.
Right.
Yeah.
What did you think of adult little Chiron Black?
I was happy that he got so buff, because then people would not be able to pick on him anymore.
That's probably the reason he did get buff, right?
Probably.
What did you think of the interaction with his mother? Do you believe that she's remorseful?
Yeah. She's in the rehabilitation center, so now that she's off whatever she was doing, I'm sure she feels now she's all clear-headed, I'm sure she feels incredibly remorseful for how she treated him.
What did you think of when Black gets the phone call from Kevin out of the blue?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's just opinions,
right?
It
was just part of the story. I knew it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. What did you think?
I mean, as we already mentioned, the relationship's extremely broken. He doesn't really want to see her. I think he sees her out of obligation, or he keeps his distance. He makes any visits few and far between, because she really wasn't there for him during the most formative parts of his life.
Well, she cops to it. She says, I didn't love you when you needed it the most.
Right. And that's great. I'm glad. I'm sure he's like, yeah, well, great you recognize that, but
now,
what's it do for me?
What do you think of Kevin reaching out to Black after all that time?
I don't know. It just seemed kind of out of the blue, and I never quite understood his reasoning that some guy played a song and then he played that song. Was that song relevant? Like, was it played earlier in their relationship, or?
I don't think so, but it was a song that reminded him of.
Yeah, that was one of those times where the silence on the subject was not helpful, because I don't know why it reminded him of it. It just did.
Or maybe was he just looking for an excuse to reconnect with him?
Maybe, but it seems sort of like, I don't know, like a long ways away. Like he's had this entire other life in between that.
I think, what did they say, like 10 years passed?
At least 10 years. He got married. He had a kid. He got divorced. He went to prison.
He didn't get married to her.
Samantha? No?
He didn't marry? Well, either he had a relationship with a woman long enough to have a kid with them, and they weren't together anymore. I assumed that they were married when he said, "Oh, we're not together anymore." But I guess,
remember he said we had a Kevin Jr. too young.
Yeah.
It was before Kevin went to jail or whatever. They're probably still teenagers.
Probably.
Maybe. I mean,
he learned the trade of cooking.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't look like, I don't know. They don't really give any exact dates on when these things happen, but these guys are in their 30s at least.
You aren't provided with all of the information in this film, but I think that they give you enough to kind of figure out where he's been and where he's going. And I really liked the storytelling. To me, it was really tight. The script is great. All the actors were wonderful. I agreed with you. I think that chapter 3, like the casting for chapters 1 and 2 were more in line. Chapter 3 is a little bit more, it's different, but it still worked. I think the actors who played those parts were really fantastic. I kind of agree that it was a kind of happy ending, but it still left me ambivalent, because it felt like he'd suffered so much. He'd been through all this trauma. He was still not comfortable in his sexuality. He tells Kevin that you're the only person who's ever touched me.
Yeah.
So was it because he harbored these feelings for Kevin? Because Kevin was the only person who was nice to him. I mean, Juan was nice to him, but in a different way. He was more of like a father figure. Kevin was somebody who was like a peer, was always kind to him. And when they were teenagers, kind of opened this door. It was almost like Kevin really saw Chiron, right? So I don't know if this was always in the back of his head, but it made sense that he just got in his car and went back to Florida to see Kevin. I still felt kind of melancholy at the end. I mean, I think that, I don't know. I mean, you're kind of left off at a certain point and kind of have to speculate or just imagine what possibly the story is what's going to happen. But it still felt like there was this constant struggle for him to like himself, to accept himself. I think he did things for himself out of like necessity. I think, kind of to G's point, I think he bulked up because he understood that he lived in this world, and in order to survive in this world, he had to look a certain way, he had to act a certain way. There's that sequence where he has that young man come into, I guess, his apartment and is counting the money, and he sort of does this like weird almost test, and it kind of left me like wondering, like, I wonder what that was about. Like, sort of to Kevin's point, it's like, here's a person that doesn't string 5 words together at any one time, and yet he's taken it upon himself to do this. And to your point, Juan was like a huge influence, so felt like probably that was something Juan would do, but at the same time, it was just...
Juan was better at it.
Juan was better at it.
Juan, you could see, actually had sort of like charm.
Yes.
I don't think Chiron has charm. He would like to,
so
but I don't. Yeah, exactly. He's been introverted for so long and so withdrawn, and also just hiding parts of himself.
Yeah.
That he can't, he's not, even though he's like all buff and he's got gold fronts and shit, I don't think he's comfortable with himself ever.
No.
I never got the impression that he was comfortable with himself.
I agree.
There's only
100%.
there was only like maybe the scene when in the second part, right after him and Kevin on the beach, you see him look. That's the only moment where I think he actually looked comfortable with himself.
And he was looking to sit with Kevin. It felt
right,
like, but
and
then
then
when he saw
then it's
Tarell,
all
he
and
sort
everything
of
just comes crashing down.
right. But then at the end,
when he finally says what he says, and then that doesn't really lead to some sort of big heart-to-heart speech. It's just that's pretty much the end of the movie. And then the next time you see them, it's just he's got his head on Kevin's shoulder. And
very reminiscent of the previous time.
yeah, and Kevin's just sort of like holding him and rubbing the side of his head. And it's sort of, all right, that's it. And it's sort of, he's not putting up a front. He's not trying to be this tough guy, drug dealer. He is just Chiron.
Right. Because multiple times, Kevin at the end in that third sequence, or the third chapter of the story, Kevin says to him, "Who are you?" He repeatedly asks him that, like, "Who are you? This is not who I thought you would be." What do you think of that?
Maybe Kevin knew that Chiron was never comfortable, and after all that time had passed, maybe he expected him to be.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. I think it's just, what's your interpretation? Same question.
No, that makes sense. That I think he was surprised that Chiron was pretending at that point. 10 years had passed. I guess he figured he would just be who he was, or who he felt that he knew he would be.
Right. But he was this persona.
Yeah.
I think I started having a thought before, and I don't think I finished it. So when we were watching it, I was thinking about you, G. You had read Lord of the Flies, and in Lord of the Flies, this group of young boys form this kind of society where the weaker ones kind of perish and the stronger, bullish ones survive. And I think here, too, you have this same trajectory of characters where the people that have the strong wills are the ones that continue on. To some extent, it felt like, even though I felt like Black had a very muted life, right? I still felt like he was doing more than Kevin, whereas it felt like Kevin was just existing. What do you think of that, G? He said, what was I can't remember quote exactly, but basically he was like, I don't have any troubles. I'm just, I got this job, I got my son, I'm good, right? Wasn't leading a bad life. He didn't have to look over his shoulder, which is probably something that Black has to do. So who do you think is living their best life? Do you think Kevin or do you think Black?
I think Kevin. I don't really get the impression that he was just like coasting by. He seemed to enjoy what he was doing. He said that he took to cooking. Mm-hmm. Like that's what he liked doing. Mm-hmm. I think Kevin was living better than Chiron.
I agree. Maybe coasting isn't the right word. I think I meant something else. But what do you say?
Oh, Kevin, definitely. Kevin made a life for himself that was himself. Chiron became Juan, a not too great imitation of him. Yeah, so of the two of them, Kevin was actually living a life.
Gee, again, just interpretation. Do you think that after this experience of meeting with Kevin again and seeing him and talking to him, do you think Black will change?
Maybe. You guys had said that the only time he looked comfortable was after that day on the beach, or the night on the beach. Maybe the more time he spends with Kevin, the more comfortable he'll feel, and maybe he could start living as himself.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, we're going to wrap it up. But before we give our numbers, I'd like to encourage everyone to see this wonderful movie. I think it's really great. I think in the pantheons of storytelling, Barry Jenkins does an amazing job with the story. It's, I think, loosely based on a biography, and it's just really spectacular. I don't want to give too much. I mean, we've pretty much spoiled the film, but just go see it. It's on Tubi, or you can rent it on Prime. Again, this is from...
Don't watch it on Tubi.
Yes, that was your big complaint, right?
Yeah. I really wanted to like this film, but it being on Tubi ruined it.
I want to encourage everyone to also like, share, and subscribe, and I'm going to go around the table and get numbers. I'm going to start with myself. I really liked this. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was heartbreaking. It was sweet. All the performances were amazing. The script is fantastic. The cinematography, the set, everything just was sublime. If I'm going to give this a number from 1 to 10, I'm going to give this a 9. What say you?
I'll probably give this a 7. Yeah, everything you said, but it's kind of a slice of life film, and I'm not really into slice of life films.
Okay, fair enough. G, what'd you think?
I give it an 8, even if the commercials ruined it, because it was still good. I didn't like the film. I just wish I liked it more.
Fair enough. So 9, 8, 7. Absolutely. Yep. If you can, check it out. You can rent it on Prime, or you can watch it on TV with commercials, which I think were mostly gambling.
Yeah. Oh
which
my
is
God.
Just, holy cow.
I didn't know there were so many.
There are so many ways to gamble. My goodness. Wow. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to bid you all a
Good night.
Good night.
good night.